right, well, welcome back to ABA Generalized. I'm Erica, and I am here to with obviously my lovely co-hosts Anne and G. But we also have an amazing surprise guest today. Her name is Amanda. She is an OT, and we're gonna definitely dive into what that means. But you know, I met Amanda on Instagram. I just happened to be like scrolling one day and saw this amazing potty training video. And I was like, I have to ask all the questions. So I did. And we just started connecting and we, now have her here. So Amanda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi. I'm so excited to be on this episode today. I am a pediatric occupational therapist. I've been practicing for about 4.5 years now, which is crazy to me because I feel like I just got started in the profession. But I started in pediatrics pretty much from the get-go, but occupational therapists can work all along the lifespan, which is really awesome. And everybody kind of has their own niche area that they specialize in. And I live in Charleston, South Carolina, full time, seeing kids in the early intervention settings. So that is mostly birth up to age 3. And I work in the natural environment. So that could be a child's home, their daycare, their ABA center, their preschool, wherever they spend most of their time. And when it aligns with our session times is where I see them at. And so I love it so much. And I love working together with kids and their families. I feel like I see the most progress when I do my practice in that setting. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Now, can you briefly describe what is occupational therapy? Because that's, I think, a question I get all the time. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, I think it's fine motor skills.
Yeah, it can be really confusing, especially, a lot of children that are showing any kind of delays are thrown into so many therapies all at once. And we all look very similar because we all have the same goal at the end of the day is to help these kids be as independent as possible and whatever it is that is important to them. And so, occupational therapy, the term occupation comes from whatever your daily occupations are. And so for kids, their main occupation is to grow and to learn, to play, maybe to do schoolwork, to feed themselves, to go to the bathroom. Those are the daily occupations that they have to do, but the main one being play. And so what our goal is for any children that are showing, they're typically referred if they're showing some sort of delay, whether it's physical, sensory, motor, cognitive, they'll come to us if they are needing help with any of those things. We are kind of the experts in knowing all about child development on all levels. And so I think it's finding the right fit. Sometimes too, not every OT is going to be super knowledgeable in sensory or potty training or feeding. And so I think when you're finding your perfect practitioner and giving them space to, grow and learn your own family needs and child's needs and help you to the best of their abilities. But yes, we are here to help anything along the, developmental milestone range and get them to be as independent as we possibly can.
That definitely makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's always like a big question that especially like us in ABA are like, well, why do we need OT? I know I had a kiddo recently that the mom like they were pushing OT and the mom was like, what even is it? Like, why does my kid need this? Like, what's going on? So that was a great explanation because again, I feel like a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, and in graduate school and in undergrad leading up to that, we take a ton of courses in anatomy and psychology. And so I think we have a really well-rounded understanding of what might be going wrong, and where there's kind of a breakdown in those skills. Sometimes people are like, oh, my kid is not potty trained. I don't know what's going on. So we're able to break down the task and see, okay, well, listen to all the sounds and their splashing and their smells, and they don't have good core strength. And so we really have a good lens and the ability to look at the whole picture, see what's going on, and then be able to break down those skills and address them at a smaller level. So it's a cool career and a cool job, and I love it.
And how did you personally get started in OT?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be healthcare. I loved the sciences from early on in life. And I think everyone was pushing, like, you should go be a doctor. And I didn't love like biochem or anything like that. And so I've always
Those are
loved,
tough ones.
yeah. And to be a doctor, it's a lot of school and a little bit more tough school. And so I started thinking I like exercise and these things. So physical therapy was my first thought. And then in my research process for that, I stumbled upon occupational therapy and just fell in love, started shadowing it. And in college, I shadowed a lot and worked with a lot of different older adults that I worked with occupational therapy practitioners on. And I thought that originally was where I wanted to go, more Parkinson's disease and neurological fits with older adults. And then just had a big switch in grad school when I started doing some of my clinicals in peds. I was like, okay, I think this is where I fit in.
That's awesome. And then when did you find your passion for like toilet training?
That was kind of random. I did notice the need for it a lot, but I definitely was not like, I want to go into toilet training. I had seen some videos on it and had been getting a lot of questions. So I created a video, and I'm sure you guys know on social media, you just never know what the algorithm is going to pick up and say, like, this is what we want to share with the people. And for some reason, the potty training videos just took off every time. So I was like, all right, I guess I have to niche down and start to learn a little bit more about potty training because that's what my audience wants to hear. So over the last 9 months or so, I have taken a deep dive into everything potty training, from, the motor side to it, from sensory, cognitive, and all the different angles. Started taking some courses, and now I love it because I realize there's such a need for it, and there's not a ton of people that have knowledge. And I mean, the thousands and thousands of messages I get every day with kind of the same questions too. And so I'm like, why is there not more materials on this? And how can I best provide the knowledge that I'm gaining with families so that they can not be so stressed out with their child toileting? So it was random, but I love it now.
Well, and it's funny, like I did a toileting CEU years ago
Yeah.
because I had no idea what I was doing, especially as a brand new BCBA. I was like, I don't know what this is. Like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to teach my technician how to do this, right? But as a technician, I was able to follow through with what I was being told, right? So that's where it was a little bit different. But I did a CEU, and it basically told me the same stuff that I was taught as a technician, but like it didn't give me any new knowledge. So like when I saw your video, I was like, oh my gosh, this is new. Like I'm seeing like all this potty training stuff, by the way, now because I follow you, and like other people are starting to follow like suit, and you see so much of it now. But like I said, like you didn't like it's not like known. Like people really just don't know how to potty train, and that's okay. But that's, where you come in.
Yeah, and I think, the way it used to work back in the day might have worked for our parents' parents, but times are changing, and I love how we are being so neuroaffirming in this new generation of kids that we're bringing into the world. And it's needed, and an understanding of why kids might not want to do it, why they're struggling with it, knowing signs and how to help with it is so important. It could be a super traumatizing experience for so many kids, especially kids that have specific needs that are not the typical or the norm. And so I think it's important that parents know it's okay. There's a lot of pressure on the internet also with misinformation about potty training. And, the 3-day method is great for some families, and other families it's not. And so just having access to different types of strategies and knowing that it's not a one size fits all model.
So what made you start making content on Instagram? Like, how did you decide to be like, okay, I'm going to start making videos on Instagram?
Yeah, I started so I started my profession working at a hospital-based clinic, and then COVID hit and it was just kind of craziness. So I moved to more of a private practice OT clinic, and we were trying to have new resources for families. So I started just filming myself a little bit, doing different fine motor activities and random things, and would help share them on our Facebook page for my company. And I realized, like, this is actually kind of fun. I like this. our families are finding it really useful. And I was starting to follow more and more accounts, PT accounts, speech accounts, OT accounts to find activities. And I was like, let's give it a whirl. So my first year was very just nonchalant. I would post like once a month. I didn't really care about it. I was just doing it when I felt like it or found an activity that was really helpful. But then when I started having some videos take off and realized the impact, the messages I would get from families just being like, you literally saved our lives, like life-changing advice on like random things that I didn't think was that impactful. I was like, okay, I think I want to commit to this a little bit more and see if I can make some kind of income from this and transition more to helping people in smaller areas that don't have access to this knowledge and therapists. And it's been a fun journey thus far, just seeing how different videos can take off and where my knowledge is most useful.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's awesome that, you know, you're getting so much good feedback about it too.
Yeah.
So we're not going to ask you about like specific advice.
Yeah.
Just because that's, you know, but if you could give just a general advice to parents who are potty training and have difficulties with elimination, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is making sure that not only your child is ready, but as the parent, that you are ready for this process going into it. I think there's a lot of stress around potty training, especially when kids get close to that third birthday, because a lot of the daycares and preschools really put that the child has to be potty trained, or else we're not going to allow your child to come. And so then the parents are stressed off of the stress, and it's just not a fun experience for anybody when everyone in the house is feeling pressured and stressed. And so I think everyone just going into it with an open mind and making it fun. This is a brand new routine for the child. For their whole lives, it's a taboo topic. So most families aren't just going around talking about what they do. So the kids don't really know. Their parents go into the bathroom and close the door and they're doing something in there. They don't cognitively register what they're doing, the sensations their parents are having.
There's no closed doors at my house. That does not.
Honestly,
there's no privacy here.
It's one of the recommendations I give parents, you know, from early on when your kid starts walking and moving around, invite them in, tell them what's going on, let them come in and be like, yeah, you know, I felt an urge in my tummy and I had to go to the bathroom. So let them come in with you, explain what's happening, have them help rip off the toilet paper, flush the toilet for you, and just get them used to the bathroom and the experience of it, you know, verbalize, story tell for them, and just let them be a part of it before you ever even think about getting them on, you know, we're going to start potty training today. There's a lot of anxiety that comes when we just choose today's the day to start, and your kid's all of a sudden like, whoa, my whole life is now changed. I'm going to go in my diaper and get changed. Now all of a sudden I have to sit on the potty every 30 minutes for 5 minutes. Like, that's not fun. Now I don't get to play or watch TV. And so it's a very pressuring experience for the child if we don't introduce early and often and get them understanding of what's happening. And so when it comes to eliminating in general, I think just starting with getting rid of the anxieties before you even start. And then once they're on there, just make it playful. I know that was a video that recently got a lot of views on. It was just, how can I even teach my child how to relax enough to release? And so the blowing bubbles is a fun way to get kids interested in it and to have that first experience of like, whoa, something comes out down there that easily. Like, if I can just sit and relax. And so I think it's a fun way to get started. I don't want, you know, families to have to rely on that. But if your child is struggling with feeling confident and nervous, it can be a playful way to get them to have that first positive interaction with the toilet.
No, I like that a lot. And I'm seeing a lot of different like ways to pair the potty with like the child in positive ways, obviously, instead of it's like a scary big thing. And you know, I think that's where you know, we kind of come in too with our behavior analytics stuff, is like trying to figure out, well, like, what is it about the bathroom that's like aversive, right? And how can we make that a more positive experience? But yeah, no, I think that you know, that kind of goes into my next question of like, how do you overcome typically like those bathroom scaries, like flushing lights or sorry, automatic flushes, you know, lights that, you know, just come on, hand dryers. Like I've had a client like that, and I didn't know what to do. So if
I
you have
also
any,
had a client that wouldn't go like if it had the automatic flusher, like we were working on getting a haircut and at the place there was an automatic flusher too. So it was like not only were we having anxiety about the haircut, because that was a whole other issue, like then we wouldn't go to the bathroom while we were there, which then he was extra uncomfortable because he also had to go to the bathroom. So
well, and then in Disney World, there's literally everything is automatic. So like my client came home from Disney and was like traumatized because
Aw.
it was just so much. And that's, yeah. Tell us more.
And it's one of those things that I feel like there's so much sensory experience that goes with the bathroom, and especially when you're carrying over from your quiet, safe place of your home bathroom to having to go out in the community and have those experiences. So I don't know if you guys use social stories a lot in ABA. It's something that we utilize a lot in OT, especially with the autism community. And it's a fun way to help kids learn about an experience without actually having to physically be a part of it. And so if parents have the ability to create, or you guys to create social stories where they actually have pictures of the child or of the actual bathroom that they're going into, and just talking about the scenario before they ever get exposed to it. When we walk in the bathroom, there might be a loud noise. What can we do to help ourselves? There's a lot. Can put on our noise canceling headphones. We can cover our ears. We can use a Post-it note to cover the automatic flusher before we even step into the bathroom itself. That way it's not going to be fearful, and helping them be able to, especially for our older kids, problem solve prior to even getting there, what we can do in those scenarios when something becomes stressful. The more prepared we are, the less caught off guard we might be.
No, I like that idea, especially with the Post-it note over the flusher.
I
never would have
yeah.
ever thought of that.
I've seen that. I haven't done it. Like my daughter, when she's 6 now, but when we did toileting with her, she didn't like the automatic flushers. So I would just take toilet paper and put it over, or just like put my hand there while she's going.
Toilets are a little easier because they actually have like a button that you can cover, but the automatic dryers and stuff are a little bit more scary and harder to.
Oh yeah.
And so I think it's, having, if the child is sensory sensitive to noise, having the noise canceling headphones or something accessible for you when you're going to be going out into the community. So that way they know they're there, they can ask for them, or you can provide the cue of, we're going to go in there. This might happen. Would you like to put on your headphones before we even walk in? And that way everybody's prepared. But, sometimes we can't always be prepared for those situations. So it's just helping them come down and then having a conversation after the fact to help them recover, so it doesn't necessarily register as a traumatic event, but so their brain can then interpret what happened, why it happened, and what we can do next time to be better prepared.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. I really like those recommendations in general for those automatic things. So I guess this kind of like I had gotten this question from another BCBA that we had worked with previously, and I wanted to make sure that I touched upon it. But do you have any recommendations or suggestions for those who smear bowel movements?
Yeah, like reaching into the diaper. And I think, it can be coming from a bunch of different angles. It can be curiosity. It can be a way for them to communicate, but I think a lot of the time it's a sensory seeking behavior. And so I think having some other form of like that same texture of play available for them throughout the day. So if they really like to get their hands in and squish, creating some kind of cloud foam for them to have and utilize, to give them whatever that sensation is that they're seeking throughout the day. But it's something really challenging to navigate. And once, obviously when kids start a routine and a habit of something, it can be really challenging to break. So my heart goes out to all of the therapists and the families that are really trying to help their child overcome that specific need, because it's a hard one and it's a difficult one for all the adults involved in it as well, because it's not clean and it's not healthy either. And so it's having those conversations, and depending on the child's specific communication needs and understanding cognitive levels of what's going on could definitely be something challenging to overcome. I would love to dive into the research a little bit more on it too, on just more of what causes it. Cause I I feel like I haven't seen a ton of research articles that really give us true information on it.
And I think it's such like an internal event happening that like it's so hard to even figure out like why did A cause B, right? Like, yeah, so that's where it definitely gets kind of tricky too. Like, because I mean, for us at least, we can't measure that stuff. And I'm sure that you can't either, like the internal feeling of it. But like, yeah, I don't know where my question was going there, but
I like the idea of like having like like Play-Doh or like something similar. Who is behind me? Is there a cat? No, it's just me. But it's like, you know, like almost like a DRI, I guess, if you're doing it at the same time, or just, you know, trying to decrease that.
Yeah, would you recommend holding like any of those sensory things like while they're on the toilet or just throughout the day?
Yeah, I think the thing with our, you know, our sensory needs is if we wait until the moment that it's like when we're going in overdrive, it's like, well, if we try to get them to bounce on a ball when they're in meltdown mode, not going to happen. You know, we needed to have provided that input prior to them getting overstimulated or whatever, you know, their sensory needs are. So that's kind of what the sensory diet. I know we've kind of went away from that term a little bit. Just because it gets confusing, but you know, trying to come up with a plan for the child that starts the time they wake up to help them stay in a rest state throughout the day to prep their system.
So more of like a proactive strategy.
Yeah, I really think that, you know, when they come into the clinic in the day, if you get them started with activities that are getting their hands working and ready, and, you know, it could be something that they utilize while they're on the toilet. I think just being cautious with it, obviously getting dirty or germy while anything's in the bathroom with them, obviously something to consider. But I think proactive sensory input could be really, really beneficial.
Yeah. For sure. And then, so is there any signs that you look for specifically before, like that shows like, hey, this child is ready for toilet training?
Yeah, I think one of the main signs is if a child is starting to wake up from naps dry or they're able to stay dry for longer periods throughout the day, that's telling me that their bladder control is improving enough to move towards potty training. If they're starting to pull off their diaper when it's dirty or wet, or they're coming to you to say, you know, I have to pee, I have to poop, obviously any of those signs that they're noticing something's happening in their body and they're about to go, that's a really good sign. Children being able to follow simple directions enough to know, you know, this is, you have to take your pants down, you have to sit on a toilet. If they can follow a simple command such as that, they might be able to follow the routine of potty training a little bit better. But there's a couple good signs as far as that goes, just so you can tell, you know, I think my child might be ready for this next step in the process. But not every kid is going to show all of the signs of readiness. We definitely want them, you know, to be able to motor wise pull their own pants up and down if possible. That way they can be more independent with the task. But, you know, some kids don't have that capability and parents can still be there to help them and they can still be independent with the process even if they can't. So it kind of just depends on the family and the child's specific needs.
Makes sense.
And then, yeah, that does make sense. Is it normal to see a regression with toileting?
Yeah,
like once you start, do you see that sometimes?
You do see it sometimes. And so I think the biggest thing when you see regressions is to take a step back and look at what's going on in the family's life at that time. Was there a new child that was born? Did the family just move? Have the parents gotten separated or divorced? You know, has there been any kind of like big life change? Oftentimes the new baby in the house, I feel like is like the number one thing where I have families like, yeah, they randomly stopped going. Now they want their diaper all of a sudden again. I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? They're like, well, I did just have a newborn baby 2 months ago. I'm like, there we are. I think there's that fight for the parent's attention. And the parent has that one-on-one time with their child so often throughout the day with their diaper changes that the kid's like, oh yeah, okay, that's how I get my mom back. I can start wearing my diaper again and we get that connection time again. And so that definitely plays a role if any kind of life changes are going on. I like to ask the parents, like, what's going on at home? You guys got something new going on, even as small as like getting a new car. You know how our kids can be with any kind of change, and the brain can interpret it in really weird ways and have just different responses than we would anticipate.
Yeah, and I guess then that like goes into my next question. Like, is it normal for them, for like some kids to not be ready until later in life for potty training?
Definitely. I mean, I think that there's some kids that just are not there yet, but I do think the earlier that we can start, at least introducing, like I was saying early on, the more that we can get them comfortable and understanding of this process, I do think that it makes potty training easier. A lot of kiddos, by the time they're 4 or 5, obviously they're a lot stronger. And by 5 years of doing something, they're way more set in that routine and their way of doing things than they are at 2, as they're just starting to learn what their day-to-day life and routine is about. So I do think the earlier parents can start introducing it and helping them understand that that's a different process and part routine that they would be involved in, the better the outcomes will be later on.
Do you also encounter kiddos that don't feel the sensation, or like you can't like how do you deal, like how do you help them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how much you guys are into the sensory processing. I'm sure you see sensory processing a lot, but there is all of our senses, our normal ones that everyone knows about, our vision, our hearing, our scent, taste. But then we also have our proprioceptive system, which is responsible for knowing where your body's at in space. There's our vestibular, which is our rotational sense. And then we have our interoceptive system, and that is our internal body state. That is responsible for telling us when we're hungry versus thirsty, when we have to poop versus pee, whether our body is feeling hot or cold. And a lot of kids that struggle with sensory processing really struggle with this specific skill. And so you might notice them doing a potty dance, but they're not registering that they're doing that because they have to pee or because their bladder feels full. And so one of the strategies, there is an occupational therapist who is amazing. Her name is Kelly Mahler, Mahler. She is incredible. She has so much information out there about interoception. I have learned so much from watching her videos and going to her website and just really deep diving into this skill, but it is so connected with potty training. And there's a lot of fun activities you can do, getting kids to do some mindfulness. And if we can get them doing body scans and really slowing down enough to know what's happening inside our body, I think all adults, all kids, everybody could benefit from that more. But it's really important to get our kids to slow down and be more in tune with what's going on in their bodies so they can better process what those sensations are.
That's really good to know. Like I never would have thought about it like slow down, but
I definitely wouldn't have either, because I've had a kiddo at my current company that deals with that. Like I know the BCBA was super stuck on like what to do because she can't feel that she has to go to the bathroom. So like, even if they're putting her on the toilet every 30 minutes or whatever the plan says, but she's not having any success with it because she can't feel that she has to go. So
Yeah. And, the heavy work with our proprioceptive system, that also helps us know more about like where our body's at and like the muscles contracting. So anytime we're doing anything that puts the muscles at work. So things like pushing a heavy wagon, pulling one of your peers along on a blanket, on a magic carpet ride, doing weight bearing, wheelbarrow walks, things like that are going to bring blood flow and response to our muscles, is going to help the brain be more in tune with our body. I think so much our kids are just bouncing off the walls so much that it's just not organized sensory input. So really organizing the activities in a heavy and purposeful way can help them slow down and get that response enough in their body.
No, that's good to know. I actually am thinking about the kiddo that we assume he can't feel like that he has to go, but like we'll sit him on the potty and he'll go. But like if he like I think he was on the trampoline And then we were like, okay, bud, like it's about that time. We should probably bring you. And he'll go, but he doesn't like communicate with us that he has to go. So we're trying to like utilize like, all right, well, when we go, we're telling him on his tablet, like, we're going to the bathroom and then, going. But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, like he was jumping on the trampoline and then we
Yeah.
brought him.
Yeah, movement definitely helps with being into it. But I think, the goal with potty training, obviously we want to be there to help them, but the end goal is for them to be independent and knowing. And so rather than, I think reward charts and stuff are pushed a lot, and for some families and kids they work well, but I think the main goal, especially for me when I'm working with families, is for their kid to have an internal knowing and like an internal motivation to go to the bathroom. I feel this sensation, I want to go to the bathroom. And so however we can best achieve that for kids is super important, not just telling them, you just drank a bottle of water, you're probably going to have to pee. It's helping them identify what that sensation is and why. Oh, my bladder feels full because
I was just gonna ask that. Like, do you like when you do toileting? Because I know, at least I've been told this is to push fluids.
Salty
do you
foods and
recommend
fluids.
doing that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely think, especially for some of the methods, like, and especially for a lot of our kiddos that aren't neurodivergent, especially, if families are trying to get their kids to recognize that full bladder and they have the ability to be at home and really, push it, it's great because sometimes when we're just going through our day-to-day life, we don't ever have to feel that super strong urge to go. We just know like, oh, I kind of feel a little bit, I should probably go before I leave the house. But kids don't really have that internal state awareness yet, especially for those small sensations. And so when it's a really full bladder, they can better feel, okay, we've got this sensation. I get some comments sometimes where it's like, well, what if they're drinking too much liquid? I don't know any kid that's ever drank too much water. I feel like every kid on earth probably needs more liquid intake. So I don't think you're ever, unless they're drinking like a gallon of water a day. But if they're just going and getting a few sips of water throughout the day, it's not going to be harmful to them. Be cautious with it, of course, with all things. But I think a lot of kids are getting way less fluid intake than they should, than the recommended intake. So just increasing, trying to feel it.
I think also adults don't get enough water too, just saying.
This is why I have this.
Yeah.
We as you're saying that, I'm thinking to I do Peloton biking, and one of the coaches is like, I think that we're generationally dehydrated. Because when we're like, I don't know how old you are, but I know for myself, like, the 90s, we were getting just like juice boxes all the time. And like,
soda, I grew up on soda.
Yeah. And so it's like, we're just trying to make up for it now. But...
Yeah.
Exactly. So I definitely think, it's helpful to have them drinking liquids, especially if starting to get on a routine of going to the bathroom every so often, but helping them identify. And this is something I've learned through learning about interoception and its, connection with potty training, but what the sensations that you all feel when you have to pee or poop might be different than my sensations and might be different than our client sensations. So instead of pushing our, interpretation of, oh, your bladder is going to feel this way, it's kind of prompting and trying to get them to identify whether it's giving them a list of words that they can choose from. Does it feel full? Does it feel stinging? What does it feel like in our body? And helping them start to identify what their own specific sensations are that they're feeling when they have to go.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm going to have to work closely with an OT with that, because I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, do it. Or Instagram on interoception this weekend and your mind will be blown.
For sure. So I guess I have one more question for you that's not pertaining to potty training, because I'm sure your life revolves around potty training, but what do you do when you're not talking about pee and poop?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't have children of my own yet. And so when I meet people just out and about and they're like, oh, like, you're going to be on a podcast today? What are you going to talk about? I'm like, oh, potty training. They're like, why? And I'm like, well, I'm an occupational therapist. They're like, so why are you talking about potty training so much? So it makes me laugh. And I have like my house filled with toys and I have no children around. So it's a funny, unique job. But currently I am living in the US Virgin Islands, which is super fun. My boyfriend needed to move down here for work. So I am down here for a few months and it has been super great. But I love exercising and being fit and going out to different restaurants, traveling. I have a pretty fun, expansive life outside of occupational therapy, but I really do just love being around kids and families and talking about this kind of stuff. I'm super hyped about it. And I spend a lot of time researching these kind of topics and trying to make content and courses and stuff for everybody on here.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And I don't know if you guys throw you off if I ask you a question, but I feel like I'm always trying to learn a little bit about BCBA and ABA therapy and stuff too. So if you guys can help explain a little bit to me as well on kind of your role with kids and what you guys work on when it comes to potty training and what strategies you guys typically find to be helpful.
Yeah, no, and we've been all in different settings and in a completely different setting than what we were when we first started working together. But I mean, for me, I guess like like I said, I've done a CEU before, but like it's more about task analysis. So like breaking down the scale of like, first we're gonna go into the bathroom, then we're gonna do all the steps except the last step for them. So they're gonna have to do that last step of like they're gonna flush the toilet, but we're gonna like help guide them through every single step before that. And I know I had mentioned the 3-minute thing. The 3-minute rule has been something that I've always been told, like you can only sit your child on the toilet for 3 minutes, but no more than 3 minutes. Because if you sit them on there for too long, obviously, you know, if anyone sits on the toilet too long, your legs are going to go numb, is what my assumption is. But like, you also don't want it to be aversive. So yeah, I usually use like a task analysis to like help bring my kids in there, but I'll even start with just pairing the toilet, like the bathroom. Like I spent months pairing the toilet and just being in the bathroom as a positive experience. Like I've brought magnet tiles in there. I've brought, you know, just like stickers or whatever, just to kind of like put onto the back of the toilet seat or whatever, the tablet, like anything to just make it a more positive experience. And so that's kind of the stuff that I've been working on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mine's been pretty similar. Like Erica said, now I'm fully like in a school district and I don't even work with like that age. So there's no toileting in my realm anymore, except for when I have a 6-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So he's starting to show some signs. But we're not there yet. So that'll just be my next. But yeah, like I've done the 3-limit rule and I've like kind of stressed that like if they're not going to go in those 3 minutes, like they're not going to go. We can try and like doing intervals, like 30-minute, 45-minute intervals, and then stretching that, you know, as the client seems like is successful and is staying dry, and teaching like dry checks too. I was taught, you know, like keep them just in underwear, no pants, so that it's easier. And then it's easier for us to see, and like having extra clothes wherever you are working at all times. And then kind of like we would do like a response interruption. Like if we saw that they would pee, we'd be like, ah, and like kind of like scare them to stop and then rush to the bathroom so they could hopefully void in there successfully so that they could get, you know, whatever reinforcer we were using. And then, you know, if they've, you know, stay dry, then we might take bathroom breaks more often just to try to like catch it. So that's, and I feel like I've done that more as a tech than as a BCBA. And just like having the parents involved too, because it needs to be carried over outside of sessions. Like, please don't put the pull up back on when we leave.
Yeah, that's what I was going to jump in. So I'm a technician, so I more see I'm just following plans basically. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of not successful potty training. I just feel like if the parent, as you said, if the parents aren't involved, at a kiddo at the clinic that fully potty trained at the clinic stays in underwear, stays dry the entire, you know, time that she's at the clinic, but as soon as they leave, she goes in a pull-up, and I don't think that it gets worked on at home. So it's like she only knows to be potty trained in this setting, and it's not generalized. Or I've also seen the opposite of like the kid is not showing any sorts of signs, like even if they're 5 years old or however old they are, like they're not showing any signs of wanting to go to the bathroom, or no, everything we talked about before, like not pulling the diaper off, not recognizing that they're wet. And then the parents are like, but they're 5 years old, like they need to be potty trained. And the parents push it so much that the BCBA puts it into the plans, and then the technician, we're running to the bathroom every 5 minutes, it feels like, but nothing's happening, and they're just having accidents, and there's no success happening. So they're not getting reinforced. The technician's getting frustrated. So unfortunately, I've seen a lot of that in my time in ABA, more than I've seen success, which kind of stinks, but I think people aren't knowledgeable of what are we really supposed to be doing.
I work in some ABA clinics as well, which I really like. I love being in the natural setting because I like you guys said, a lot of times there's not carryover at home. So I like being able to be in the home and look at their bathroom setup and tell them what I think based on their own settings. But I work in a lot of ABA centers as well I do work with some kids that are older than 3, some 4s and 5s. And I have one specific ABA clinic, and they were trying to implement the plan. That was what the family wanted. And it was every 30 minutes. We had to sit for 5 minutes. And, I had to do it during my sessions when I was there because I didn't want to mess up. But, the child was just so traumatized when I tried to transition to her in any way to the bathroom. And, it was just coming back to and having the conversation with then the tech, the BCBA, and then the family, and just being like, hey, is the importance of potty training more important than their emotional state and their needs at this time? And how can we take a step back and work on potty training by not sitting them on the toilet throughout the day? Can we implement books or videos or, some other techniques that are going to help them build the association? Like you said, bringing toys into the bathroom rather than just having them sit. And it was weeks at a time where she would not have one successful pee or poop on the toilet, but she was going every 30 minutes. So I'm like, that's telling us, something's not connecting here. So let's take a step back. And so I think it's great when the different professionals and families can all really get together and problem solve and get on the same page with okay, what's going on? Why is it going on? And how can we reroute and create new goals and strategies to help them even just make a small stride? Maybe being fully potty trained, it shouldn't even be in our vision of a goal right now. We've got to start small before we can get to the end goal sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Collaboration.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. Need that. Need everyone on board.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for talking with us today and sharing all of your knowledge. I think this will be really helpful for viewers and listeners. I learned a lot. I didn't know what interoceptive, I don't know any of that stuff.
Guys, in an email, how to spell it and some articles on it.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be great. So if you're okay with it, we want to share where people can find you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amanda is on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and what is Stan Store? Is that where you buy the Stanleys?
It's it's my website platform, kind of like website whatever other people use. It's just a platform where you can download my free guides, book free calls with me, shop my Amazon storefront, kind of like a link tree, but a little bit
okay
scale.
No, I'm gonna get fired from doing these wrap-ups. Our last recording, G was about to fire me. So I'm gonna hold it together, guys. Okay.
You didn't say the handle.
Obviously, and the handle. We need that.
All right. Nope. Anne is officially fired. Nope.
No, I got this. Stop. You're pediatric OT. Okay.
That is. Do you want to spell it for the people?
Your YOUR pediatric PEDIATRICOT.
I'm very proud of you for not messing that one up.
Thank you. Well, don't reinforce me yet. I still have all our stuff to go through.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then you can find us, you can email us at aba.generalized.podcast@gmail.com, Instagram, ABA Generalized the pod, YouTube, ABA Generalized, TikTok, ABA Generalized. There's nothing there still. I can't. I'm about to delete it. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe. What?
So we're gonna figure it out. We need some more time.
I can't. I'm done with it. Rate, review, and subscribe us. And if Amanda, if you know anybody, you said you mentioned Kelly. I don't know if we can get in touch with her and see if she wants to come on. Anyone who's watching or listening to this, if you want to email us,
DM us, slide in our DMs.
DM, I mean, yeah, sure.
And you barely go on it anyway, so it's fine. It's me and G. Mainly.
I know.
I never actually had one-on-one connection with Kelly Mahler. I probably should reach out to her because she's like an idol of mine in the pediatric OT world and the sensory world. So I will send you guys her information. I should probably email her too and let her know. But this was not like a sponsored drop of a name. I just love her. That she is so knowledgeable in things and has helped me so much be able to help families too. So love to share her page and her insights on stuff.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing.
Awesome. Love the support.
And Amanda.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yay. Woo.
ABA Generalized, the podcast, is not providing professional advice. Please seek a professional in your area for specific advice and support.